All right, guys, welcome back. We are now going to talk about creating guarantees. And while they're not the most important part of creating a great offer, they are important. And there are a lot of different types of guarantees, and I'm going to run through all of them. This training might be a little bit longer. I'm putting most of the modules into one training just to speed the things up for you a little bit here. But let's dive in. Like I said, it's not the most important thing. There is a document here that's going to help you kind of walk you through the process here of creating a good offer. And I want to start by saying this. When you're creating a guarantee, the goal should not be to manipulate someone to buy. It should be to remove risk so that your ideal customer can get out of their own way and work with you. That's ultimately what you're trying to do. Unfortunately, a lot of people use guarantees as a way to manipulate someone to join or buy their program, and that's not what you're trying to do here, okay? Buyers fear regret more than they crave reward, and that's what we're trying to eliminate. What we want to do is eliminate some of that decision friction and get people to shift from buyer to seller by helping them see the most important parts of your offer. Okay. Now, many markets see a huge increase in conversions with this, but I also see people who are doing this wrong. And what ends up happening is they end up increasing chargebacks or bringing on terrible clients. That is not what you want. What you want are people who have been in the industry. Maybe they've tried some things, and the people that you have to offer a guarantee to are usually the ones they're actively seeking a solution and they're willing to try. They're just jaded. Okay. Who you don't want to offer a guarantee to are people who are broke, who have to borrow the money to get started with you. If that's the kind of person that you're talking to, you need to take a step back. You need to reevaluate your ads, your social content, and make sure you're attracting the right people. That's number one. But number two, if you have to pull people in, you're going to have to pull them to take action. And trust me, that's not worth it. No amount of money is worth working with a bad client. But guarantees have their place. And I will say this, especially inside of low ticket, okay? If you're using some low ticket strategies to try to liquidate some ad spend, or you're using it as a qualifier or even a retargeting strategy, it's a $27 to a $197 offer, guarantees are fantastic. And in fact, I would recommend a 100% money back guarantee. If you go through all of the course modules and you're not totally happy with the product, just ask for a refund within 30 days and we'll refund your money back. That is an unconditional money back guarantee. I would only use that in low ticket offers and in offers where you're comfortable rewarding that. And this is going to help eliminate chargebacks and disputes. If you're working with Stripe or any kind of payment processor, they hate chargebacks. So this is a great way to eliminate some of that. The second thing that this does is it creates some goodwill, okay? And it can absolutely help with conversion when it comes to lower ticket products. Now, higher ticket, okay, I wouldn't provide an unconditional guarantee because that can be very dangerous, very risky to your business. What I would offer is a conditional guarantee, performance guarantee. These are kind of similar. And what I recommend here is building out a set of actions that if they take realistically, where they're challenging, but where they take these steps realistically, they're going to have the results that you recommend or that you feel that they should. Okay. It requires action. Okay. I'll give you a real life example. If your offer requires that people do a lot of outreach to potential clients, and let's say that you're training people on how to generate leads on LinkedIn, and you know that if they do 2,000 outreach to qualified contacts, that they're going to book a certain number of calls. And if they're holding a certain number of calls per month, that they're going to make a certain amount of sales. And if they make a certain amount of sales, they're going to make X amount. Then you know your process works and you can offer a conditional guarantee. So what you do is if you make X number of contacts and you book X number of calls and you close X number of sales, or if you hold X number of sales calls, I guarantee that you're going to make your money back. And if you don't, I'll work with you until you do make your money back. Instead of just giving your money back, that's the way I would do it, right? So this is kind of a performance guarantee, but also a conditional guarantee combined into one. The anti-guarantee is if you flip the script. If you don't see results, we'll pay you $100. This, again, I would probably put the anti-guarantee in more of a low ticket environment. You could also do it with high ticket, but I think the best for high ticket are conditional and performance guarantees. All right, the next one we're going to talk about are probably more reserved for lower ticket. Risk reversal frameworks, better than free positioning. That's if it doesn't work, you get your money back and you get to keep the bonuses, right? So if you don't like, if this course doesn't help you, we'll give you your money back and you get to keep access to the course and stay in the community. Something like that. Double guarantees. Example, 30-day money back guarantee plus future, performance guarantee. It can work. But service credits, if your results aren't met, client gets extra coaching support until they succeed. I kind of combine this with the conditional guarantee, like I mentioned before, up in the high ticket. Okay, so I would kind of combine those two together. Let's take a moment here and talk about compliance, because compliance is really, really important. And I don't want to be a fearmonger here, but let's be honest, the FTC does watch, okay? And you might think you're too small to get the attention of the FTC, and I'm here to promise you, you're not. It doesn't matter. I would operate this way. Always operate under the assumption that someone is watching what you're doing. And if you don't feel like it would be okay, if you feel uncomfortable saying it or doing it, don't say or do it. That's the secret. And then ultimately kill people with kindness. If they request a refund, as long as it's reasonable, give it to them. Please do a little bit of research when it comes to the FTC rule number 8, warranties and guarantees. Clearly and conspicuously disclose all terms and conditions when it comes to your guarantee and when it comes to your offer. Okay. You really need to make sure that you're disclosing what those conditions are. And this is more for high ticket, but also low ticket as well. Low ticket, it doesn't matter as much. I recommend this. If someone does a chargeback or if someone wants their money back for a low ticket product, just give it to them. Don't fight them over a $47 product or $97 product. Trust me, it is not worth it. They're going to charge back anyway, and you have to go through the process of submitting your evidence, and it just creates bad blood. I always, when someone requests for our software, hey, I didn't want to be charged this month. I was just interested in the trial. Can I have my money back? I say absolutely, absolutely. Now, if someone's been using the software for 6 months and they've spent a lot of money on it, no, I'm not going to give them their money back. I can give them, the most recent month, for example, like if they thought they canceled but didn't cancel. So I will always work with a customer. You got to make sure that you're putting all of this information up front. All the guarantees, everything has to be clear, over explain, okay, all of your guarantees. So if you're doing a webinar, for example, it's really, really important. You should have a whole page devoted to the guarantee rules, and they've got to be clear, accurate, and easy to claim. Okay, very, very simple. The rule of thumb is, like I said, if you wouldn't explain it to your grandmother, plain English, rewrite it, and always assume that someone is looking over your shoulder and watching, because they are. That is guarantees. Now, as you go through this worksheet, we're going to guide you through some things here. I wouldn't place all of your emphasis and energy on creating guarantees. Yes, they can help. They're very, very useful in low ticket situations, but I want you to step back and I want you to ask yourself something. If the only reason that people are joining your offer, joining your program, your high ticket program, is because of a guarantee, is your offer strong enough? Okay, I'm going to leave it there. Take a step back and ask yourself that. It's not the guarantee. The guarantee should be helping that fear, that person who has that fear, who've been in other programs. It should remove that. But at the end of the day, you should know that your program works. And if it does, put a conditional guarantee in there. I'm fine with that, okay? But just be prepared to quickly identify whether or not people are joining just for that. And if they are, you want to weed that out, because it's going to breed an environment of bad clients. And trust me, guys, you don't want that. So that's the breakdown of implementing solid guarantees into your offer. We will see you in the next training.